Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast, where I am speaking to somebody who's on the beautiful Gold Coast of Queensland. And it is nice and sunny out there as we're just about to go into our spring here in Australia. Steve Edgar is a veteran leader in the club industry with over 2 decades of experience and currently serves as the general manager of the Coolangatta Surf Lifesaving Supporters Club. He's widely respected for leading with empathy, transforming workplace culture, and guiding his club through major challenges, including the 2018 Commonwealth Games disruption and COVID-19 border closures, achieving record growth and profitability. He played a pivotal role in the Essentially Coolie campaign during the COVID border closures. The campaign drew national media attention, which eventually secured $14 million in support for the Coolangatta region. Now, for those that aren't in Australia or not aware of where Coolangatta is, it is right on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. And during that time of COVID, we were constantly closing and opening our borders, and it became quite strained where families were sort of separated and trying to get over these orange, barricades. So it was very crazy. As president of Clubs for a Cause, Steve is a passionate advocate for mental health. The organisation recently delivered its third and most successful Walking with Mates for Mental Health awareness event, raising over $90,000. These funds are now supporting a meaningful community programs, including the upcoming Healthy Heads sessions, which will provide free mental health support and deeply discounted workshops for businesses focused on empathy, connection, and building better workplace culture. And I know I certainly want to chat to Steve about that a lot more. Steve is also a regular volunteer with Orange Sky Laundry and a tireless voice for mental fitness in the workplace. His leadership philosophy centers on care, connection, and creating safe, values-led environments where people and teams can thrive. Thank you so much for joining me, Steve. It's really wonderful to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Hey Michelle, thanks very much for having me on board. And it feels funny listening to all that stuff. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, it's wonderful to be here.
And look, it's always interesting, when we read somebody's bio, because yes, even though we've probably put it together or had somebody, it gives us a moment to reflect on what we do. And I think too often that's one of those things I see of mental health. We just rush from one thing to another, don't we, Steve? And what we need to do is just stop and acknowledge what we've done, even the small little steps and achievements in our lives. But look, there's certainly a lot there in your bio that we're going to dig into over this podcast, both as your role as the CEO, in a very large and community-centred registered club in Queensland, as well, of course, Clubs for a Cause. And I want to hear a lot more about that because I know that's really deep in your heart and with your
Yep.
community and team there. So let's kick off. Your leadership at the Coolangatta Surf Club has had such a positive ripple effect, not just within your team, but across the entire community. And that's what it is. It's just that one person making a difference and then that ripple. So, what does leading with empathy mean to you in the day-to-day operations of a busy club?
Yeah, good question. I think they're all good questions, by the way. But you look, that's sort of in the possibly the last decade of my management and leadership career. I've just turned 60, so that's just a number, but a significant one. But look, you do get to reflect. And one of the things I find is really being able to adapt to different generations. I mean, there's a third of our workforce, we've got about 90 staff, so about 30 of our workers are 20 years and under. So they view the world in a much different way than I do, that's for sure,
Yes.
or have certainly. And I sort of reflect back only a few years ago where it was really the done thing for a manager to say, leave your troubles at the front door. I want a smile on your face or you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So adapting to that is really what I sort of think. And it's empathy is a really good word, and I love it. It's different to sympathy, it's different to kindness, and I really think it's just a matter of just like learning to understand yourself, your team around you, and certainly your staff. Because there's certain different situations at different times where somebody might be struggling for something that's going on at home. You're in a busy workplace, and the manager and the leader just need to care to make sure they're okay, and that can mean a whole lot of things. But just understanding and wanting to care is probably the key to that.
Mm. And you're so true there. You know, they look to the managers, the leaders within their organization, but also the support from their peers. And yes, you know, I even know in my last 31 years of training in the industry, you would say, you know, you're on the stage, you know, that once the curtains are open, you've got to smile. And that's what our members and guests are wanting to come to. They want to see a smiling face. They want to see a connection. But you're so right, particularly with that Gen Z, but in all generations, but in Gen Z, they've really had that growing up in having conversations, sharing, having that group connection. So coming into the workplace when for many of them they may not know anybody that they're working with, they're really looking to seek, well, how do I adjust? How do I adapt? And showing that part of empathy from a leader. Yeah, I've truly agree with you there, Steve.
Mm.
It is
Yeah.
just so important because we know we've got to do the doing, but we've got to
Mm.
stop and do the empathy part. And it's being authentic when we do it and
Yeah, and
realizing what
look,
that
I
impacted.
think sort of treating, your team like a person,
Mm,
with all that goes with that. We all have feelings and things that go right and wrong in our lives, and have different feelings at different times. But it's not hard to treat them like a number. Sometimes when you're sitting behind a desk looking at
yes.
wage percentages of sales and stuff. But like literally, listening to what's going on in their life. We're working really hard at the moment on our inductions.
Mm,
Because we're on the Gold Coast, there's a lot of people come from other parts of the world to come and work with us, and sometimes they're homesick or it's
mm,
a real social connection. And just trying to foster a real true sense of belonging for someone. The quicker you can get them inducted into your team and feel like they belong in there as part of your team,
yeah.
they feel more comfortable and they will feel accepted. And that's to me, they're two massively huge things for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're so right. I think we look in any workplace, but particularly with the hospitality industry where we've got people coming from other countries, other states, they don't know, anybody. And we go to work, we work, and then we go home and we don't think about those at all, because usually the ones with nice, lovely smiling faces that they're going to perhaps just a bed sit or a home that they know nobody. And
Mm.
we forget about asking them to come down to the football or maybe the kids' events or just involving them, in a walk or, a footy tipping. It just creates that feeling of belonging. You're right. We do it for our community, we do it for our members and guests, but we
Mm.
don't always think about it with our team members.
Yeah, 100%.
So
Agree
yeah.
more. Yeah.
It's just moving out of that mindset of okay, I've just clocked off. I just want to be by myself. Oh, they probably just want to be by themselves because they've been
Mm.
talking or running around. But there are times, and we work such odd hours as well. Perhaps the school mums or the people that they know, their neighbours, aren't around when they're off shift either.
Mm.
So yeah, belonging is so important.
Yeah, huge.
It really is key. So at the club, it's known for it's that deep community connection, which is key. The surf club there on the Gold Coast, it's got a beautiful view. People are connected. You've got lots of people going in and out, and people see their club as their extension to the lounge room, isn't it? Where they
Yeah.
meet, they have conversations, they can sit there by themselves and still feel that they're part of the community, particularly when they engage with the staff members, which is key. But how has your connection with the local community shaped the club's culture?
That's a good question. Once again, I think it's really understanding your purpose. Like all clubs
Mm,
have a purpose. So it's not just a matter of just fronting up to provide some hospitality services. Our purpose of this club is to support our Surf Lifesaving Club, which is a registered charity, and that's just, of course, the red and yellow flags and the
mm,
volunteer lifesavers on the beach between September and May. So look, and that means a heck of a lot to the tourism industry. I mean, all of the tourists that come here, they feel a sense of safety and security when they can pop down the beach and enjoy their time, and people are giving their time up to do that. So we
yeah.
understand our purpose perfectly well there, and that's really important to me. That look, and it's a community feel good anyway. But
Yes.
I think one thing I'm trying to get to is, and it did happen through the Essentially Coolie campaign with the border closures we spoke about before. But
Mm,
it's just like, like we're probably the biggest club in town, I guess. So I felt a sense of that the community needed us to stand up at that time and have a decent crack,
mm,
and it just rolled on from there. But like a club is, I think most clubs are. the center of the community, and they're there through good times and bad times, and when
Yes.
people are struggling. But I think most of what you said before, they provide an outstanding platform for people just to connect and get out of their house. And
Mm.
a lot of people are lonely, especially the elderly,
Yes.
and get out and social connection. I think we learned a lot through the COVID
Mm.
period. I think it was a bit of a control alt delete for everybody, and
Yes.
I think our feelings are much more acute than what they were pre-COVID, that's for sure. So,
Mm. Definitely. And you're right, loneliness is it impacts immensely on people's health. It's the third biggest killer
mm,
in first world countries, after cancer and heart attack.
yeah,
And you're right, there's a lot of older people because they may be separated from their families or, whatever that means. But it was quite interesting. Mark McCrindle did some research here in Australia. It's a massive big research. And they found that, and even globally through research with other organizations, that is actually Gen Z that are the loneliest
mm,
generation. And we think of them as, being so well connected, but they're connected with these silly things online
yeah,
with people that
yeah,
they're never going to see, somebody
mm,
that they can't go up to and sit down and have a meal or just sit beside you. You don't even have to talk, and it's interesting they can be connected in one way. But do you feel then this culture that you're developing with your community then attracts people to want to work with you because of that culture that you have with your community?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I think so. Like we certainly work really, really hard to look after our people, and and part of that is being really kind and caring and showing a high sense of empathy, but it's also being really, really strong on things like bullying and harassment, and just
Mm,
being really clear, zero tolerance, no yelling in the workplace, that
mm,
type of thing. So, look, we don't always get it right. We're human beings. We're not robots, but
mm,
it's that whole sense of safety. And it is hard in hospo in a tourist area because there's a real churn with
mm,
people. It's a transient population, but
mm.
yeah, look, it's the people we do have love being here, and they're very passionate with looking after each other, and just things like we've been trying to develop a wellness committee to keep our eyes and ears open for people. Trying to develop some fun stuff outside of work without crossing that boundary of the right to disconnect
Yes.
and all those things we've got to learn. But
Mm,
that's the world we live in these days, and interesting with the phone thing. It's really is a thing. Like it's validation.
mm.
I'll put a post up, and it's like how many likes I'll get means how popular I am. Well, it's
Yes.
it's there's really no connection at all, and
Mm.
it's a driver for mental illness in teenagers in a huge way at the moment, and
Yes.
it's a real issue.
Mm. I like the point that you made about, these new policies that were put in place here in Australia about this right to disconnect. So all employees have the right to not answer an message or a phone call, at night time when they're out of the workplace. But what I fear is that some employers may look at that as like, oh, that's it. It becomes this regulatory barrier that, well, we can't do that. What I'm hearing from you, Steve, is we've still got to connect. We can still put it out there. We're not forcing them. We let them know that it's still there because if we just go, well, that's the regulation. I
Mm,
can't organize, a barbecue at night time or
mm,
pick up rubbish or donate blood or do
yeah.
whatever out of your shift,
Mm,
then we lose that opportunity of building that culture where people do want to connect,
mm,
but allowing them to connect on their own terms. That's probably, we're going through a lot of compliance, as we all
yep.
know here in Australia. And when you look at compliances, you got, oh, well, then, these are the policies that we've got to uphold. But we've got people, as you
Mm,
rightly said, these are living people. So
mm.
we've got to make sure that we just don't use the new policy as a reason to, oh, well, we don't have to do anything for them now because, that's the policy. What are your thoughts?
Well, what you just said there, I think is, well, we found that out last year was, connecting on their terms, not mine. Like
Yes.
we'll muck around with, we split our workplace up into some teams and thought, "Look, let's have some fun." And we split it up, was purposeful, and, we made sure there was some influence in each one. And if there was, really strong friendships, we'd split them into different teams and made sure not all the kitchen guys were together, all that gear. So,
Yes.
and we had to manipulate it a fair bit. And then we decided we were going to do let's just say we're all going to meet on a Thursday morning and go for a walk and have a free coffee.
Hmm.
The feedback was, don't tell me what to do on my time off.
Yeah.
Right. So then it morphed into like, well, let's just have a walk. Then some of the young guys are going, well, we don't want to walk. That's an old person. We want to run. So we developed it was called a walk, run, or jog challenge with the teams. And we had a pretty lucrative prize at the end. It was like $1,000. It ran for 3 months. It was $1,000 prize at a restaurant of their choice for the team to go. And we'd pay them to go actually on it. We rost and they clocked up on our work app. Every kilometre they walked was counted, and it was amazing what we saw. We even had people on holidays in Brazil still running and clocking up Ks and putting it on the app and stuff. So it ran over 3 months, and there was literally 50 kilometres between the first and the third place getters,
Oh.
and 4 kilometres between first and second prize.
Oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
it was putting fun into it, but also a little bit of healthy competition.
It was, and yeah, and the
Yes.
thing with mental health is getting some physical fitness and activity, and it certainly
Yes.
goes hand in hand. And one of those things where, like, we had some weekly challenges, like bring a friend along for double points and things like that. And I have a guy in our kitchen he's not really physically well, and I made a point of grabbing him. We went for a walk we literally could only walk for a kilometre and back, but
Yeah.
he came up to me afterwards and said he was really, really grateful that I took the time to just to walk with him, and that was only 2Ks, which was 4Ks with double points, but that was a point. It was,
Mm.
but they connected on their terms, not my terms. So it was like they could do it anytime they liked. So it was
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. But it was that journey at the start of them
Mm,
pushing back. You could have quite easily gone, oh gee, what? Put our hands up. We try, don't we? And then,
yeah,
and they never want to do it. But just that, okay, let's just tweak it, tweak it, tweak it,
yeah,
and happen that. I love that idea of inviting, that chap for a walk because, unintentionally we can overlook and we think, oh, well, they probably don't want to do it. But
mm,
just asking, and once again, they feel like they belong.
yep,
Yeah,
100%.
which
Yes.
which makes it such an important part. So not only are they feeling good and they're having a bit of healthy competition amongst themselves, it's improving their mental health. So
Mm,
that's why I want to have a talk to you about clubs for a cause because this is
yep.
really important. It's
Mm.
grown from the grassroots walk into a movement. So can you just take us back to where it all began and why mental health became such a core mission for you?
Yeah, that was a beauty. Well, there's a bit to that. It was. I'll go right back to. I didn't really realize this until fairly recently, actually. Where I'm doing a lot of reflection of myself at the moment in my little phase, which I think is really important.
Mm.
So my first club I was general manager of was in 2003, and I was fresh into management leadership, and you don't know what you don't know. So I thought I knew everything, and it turns out I didn't know too much at all. But look, through that process, I was in a club, pretty good club, and I had about 50 staff, I think it was. So it was a reasonably sized club.
Mm.
And my job was to help, was a football club, help the football club grow into the state league. And we had to do a grounds maintenance program and all that stuff. We employed a groundsman, had a couple of groundsmen. So the second groundsman I employed, I fell out of favour with him a little bit. Um, he came to me one day and said, I want to come and have lunch in the staff room with the other staff. And I said, no.
Mm.
I didn't know at the time. This is probably what drives me. Unfortunately, that chap ended up taking his own life, which was horrendous, obviously, and I ended up finding him, which was particularly hardcore. Strange enough, I didn't at any time blame myself 100% for that, but I do look back and go, how important is a conversation?
Mm.
And really, if that had been spun any other way, it could have been different. I don't know that.
Mm.
I spent some time at a counsellor back then. I was lucky enough to get in straight away. I met with the chap's wife and his sister and had a fairly long relationship afterwards with them as a sense of purpose. But look, strangely enough, I put that away into a dark place and I never got back into that point. But subconsciously, it's always there.
Mm.
So roll forward, COVID hit. I struggled a fair bit through then. I put a post on LinkedIn called Pandemic Fatigue, and it ended up getting a fair bit of traction, but
Mm.
which sort of was like, oh, a bit of a shock. But I had a guy come to me. one of our suppliers and said we should do an industry-wide walk to signify the 12-month anniversary of the big lockdown, which was 20th of March 2020.
Mm.
And I said, okay. So in my usual fashion, I don't think too much. I just do. I just do. So we planned on a walk from a 10K walk from Coolangatta to Currumbin and have a function at the end. And we ended up raising $42,000 or thereabouts. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was really good. But like we had people restrictions. We could only have so many people. It was quite strange, but it happened fairly easily. But it was a fair bit of hard work in it. And I hopped off the stage. I don't ever remember really saying too much deep about my own mental health struggles, but I remember really clearly I had about five people approach me straight away and just say to me, I'm struggling with my mental health. And I'm like, I'm not a counsellor. And
Mm.
I was shaking my head, I was pushing him away. I got back to work on the Monday and I had a guy, it was another supplier, knocking on my door frantically. And he wanted to see me. And I was a bit annoyed he hadn't made an appointment. And I ended up seeing him and turns out he said to me, I've just lost my father. He's just passed away, and you're the only guy in the world I want to talk to.
Oh, wow.
So I sat down with him and held space with him and held him. I had a big hug with him, and we got through that. So that was sort of like that put a lot of feeling towards what was going on there. And it was just that
Mm.
really turned into I really understood about then that it really meant a lot to a lot of people. So,
Yes.
and it doesn't discriminate, as we know, and it's just
Mm.
everybody's affected in some way or another, whether they talk about it or they don't talk about it. I really understand that clearly.
Mm.
We did another walk the next year. We changed our beneficiary, which is a whole other story, but we're a not-for-profit, so we donate to a charity, and it's called Mindful Australia,
Mhm.
which is Matt Runnels, which is quite an amazing young man. We raised 47 grand that year
Wow.
under some pretty extreme circumstances. We were having a massive storm predicted that morning of the walk, which was, I think there was about 200 mil of rain predicted to fall in 3 hours.
Gosh.
And I'd had about 40 grand with a sponsorship lined up, and everyone was coming from everywhere else to come to the Gold Coast. And I was panicking and just going, oh, this is going to be a failure, and that's what I do. And one of my colleagues said to me, hang on a sec, isn't mental health about walking through a storm?
Yeah.
And I said,
Yes.
righto, that's the theme. So we did that, and it was pretty amazing. And we did that. But what happened from there was I have a bit of a fault of mine is I jump into everything head first and immerse myself completely, and it burnt me out a little bit, Michelle.
Mm.
So there was a hiatus there. That was in 2002. So we did everything in 2003. No, sorry, 2022. It was 21, 22. Didn't do anything in 23 or 24, and then I wanted to, because the other part of that was it's very difficult to handle all the money. We had to go through Clubs Queensland's bank account to every registration went through them,
Oh,
all the
wow.
invoices paid. So to start a bank account, we need to get a constitution, set up a committee, get a
Mm.
bank account. So that gives us the ability to hold some money until next year now. So that's what we've done,
Right.
which we did this year. So
So a lot of work, but certainly worth it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was huge.
And thank you for sharing, your journey there because, as you said, you can't hold yourself accountable,
Mm.
but it's acknowledging that people will seek you out and it is to hold that space. But the impact that you've done now over the years and continue to do is what we need to be hold you accountable for is
Yeah.
making that big difference and that's wonderful. I was looking at the website and there's a little video where you're getting off the stage and you're talking and you say this absolutely perfect. The pay is terrible, but the rewards are enormous.
Yeah.
So what are some of those powerful moments that have made it all worth it? I know you've shared those personal stories there, but
Yeah.
what are those moments that you've gone, this is worth it?
Yeah, well, to close the loop on that previous story with the guy who had lost his father was literally the timing was incredible. It was he actually came on the walk this year, but it was like 2 weeks before the walk, and I was once again having a meeting with somebody else, and he showed up out of the blue. He's not real good at making appointments, this guy, but he said, "I want to see you," and I said, "Oh God." So yeah, righto, mate. What do you want? You know, sort of like this, and he goes, "I want to tell you something." I said, "What?" And he goes, "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you." So I was just like, wowee. So I told that story on stage
Hmm.
at the late, it was only a 10-minute speech, but it like literally was like we had 300 people on that deck at Burleigh Bears that day, and I said to them, how I didn't mention his name. I just said, he's here right now. You
Mm.
should have seen everyone turn around going, I wonder who it is.
Yeah.
The only clue they had was it was a male. And I told that story about how he'd lost his father, only wanted to talk to me. He felt comfortable talking to me. So, and the story then was, you don't need to be a counsellor to care. You just need to hold space and listen and care.
Yes.
And I'm really big on also closing the loop, as I just said. Like it's not about just telling you sad stories. You've got to leave people with some hope and positivity. And the
Yes.
fact of the matter was he's yeah, he still struggles with some mental health issues, but you know what? We've got a very, very strong friendship and a really strong bond and
Mm.
connection. And
Yes.
he views me as a bloke who's made a big difference in his life. So they're the things that I coined that phrase. It was
Yeah.
it's a bit of a catchy thing, but I use it at Orange Sky Laundry too.
Yes.
It's good, yeah. So
And it is. You've made a point there. You're not a counselor, but it's holding that space, and I think that's where, particularly young leaders, but no, all generations. I shouldn't just say particularly young. I know those ones that I'm training. They sort of say to me, Michelle, but well, what do we say? You know,
hmm,
we're not psychologists, we're not counselors, and
yeah,
and that's correct. You're not, and we certainly, I think, we've all seen people, across our industry, in particular, Steve, that have taken on the burden of so many that it literally is drowning them because, but particularly those who love to help, and and so they get caught up in that. We know that we have some programs through all our venues that the team can seek out help, and all that's confidential. But
yep.
it's also ensuring that we can hold space and listen. But if they need that help, then it's getting them to get that professional help, isn't it? Or even to
Yeah,
hospital.
look, I think that's it's really what I'm trying to achieve right now is literally going, right. Well, it doesn't matter who you are.
Mm,
Be authentic, show some vulnerability yourself, and
yes.
that'll help people understand you a bit more and just and probably drop the barrier. But like I've gone through only this week on Tuesday, I went through the third year in a row. I've done mental health first aid training, which is amazing. And like
Mm,
even understanding what that means, it's like, it's just like my fear was when I got off that stage back in 2021 was like, if I said to someone, "Are you okay?" and I said, "No, I'm not," what would I do? And I had that
yes.
previous experience. And
Mm,
I didn't want to be, oh God, I
mm,
was catastrophizing the whole thing. But literally, you just need to understand, and everybody does,
mm,
that our brains is an intricate piece of machinery, and it's scary. Like
yes.
people, but changing conversation in a workplace, like I can't come to work because I'm feeling sick. Like we would go, "What's wrong with you?"
Mm,
Go, oh well, I've got an upset tummy. Oh, okay, no worries. We'll get better and come to work.
mm,
I can't come to work. I'm feeling sick. Why is that? Oh, I've got anxiety. Oh,
mm,
right.
yes.
That's what's at my business. What sickness you got? Right. It's
Mm,
just literally. So I think the big thing for me right now, my quest is to go right. We'll break some stigma down and normalize some conversations just by talking about things, having events,
mm,
having some good connection, and that happens in a number of ways. But like my quest is to get into workplaces and go right. Well, you know what? Like anybody doesn't need to be a counselor, but understanding how to have a conversation, hold
mm,
space, active listening, like listen to someone and don't do what I do and go, oh, they'll give you a story and go, oh, yeah, I had a story too. You
yeah.
don't just shut your mouth. Let
Yes.
them talk.
Zip
Yeah.
it. Even though
Yeah,
you
that's
want to
right.
help, zip
Yeah,
it.
so mental health first aid, back to that one, it's like it's no different to medical first aid. Like you're not doctors or nurses, right? You find someone, you're a first responder, and you go and refer them you deal with the situation, whether it's a band-aid to fix them immediately, or you refer them to a doctor or a hospital or an ambulance or whatever it might be. So
Yes.
that's thinking through that in that way is really good. So I'd encourage most people to go, or anyone possible to go and undertake mental health first aid training because it's amazing. But
Mm,
I don't recommend it for just general staff members. It's quite confronting.
yes.
Um,
Mm,
so what we're doing is through our programs when we do Healthy Heads, it's we developed a workshop which is not accredited, but it's just teaching people how to have those conversations of a
mm,
general nature, what to do, using that big word suicide, like
yeah.
how to ask that question, how to
Mm,
deal with things, and it's also a team building way. So it's a fun workshop, and we're really excited to bring it out and
mm.
see how it's going to go. But that's sort of what I'm looking to do is just teaching people in a workplace to it's okay to care, and you can just talk with people. You don't need to be a counsellor.
Yes, yeah, you don't need, and it's you can be vulnerable, and it's removing that stigma and that feeling of shame that many people feel, that we hear that
Mm.
if we're talking about it and they know that they can share openly and not going to be questioned,
Yeah.
then it hopefully will reduce the people from not talking.
Mm.
It's going
Yep.
to get them to talk. Although I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, Steve, because I know we hear it quite a lot where they'll ring up and say, "I've got anxiety," and you think, well, is it anxiety or you just don't want to come into work?
Mm.
So have you got any thoughts on that? Because or do you feel that people fall into that headspace, that negative headspace of going, oh, here they'd rather be going out or they don't want to work with so and so, instead of perhaps of just taking that moment and going, well, is it truly anxiety and what else, what can I do to help them? Or do I just accept that and wait till they come into work and then have a conversation with them?
Brilliant.
Mm.
Brilliant. I'm glad you brought it up. It's really at the coal face of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Clearly, we don't have a good solution to that. But
Mm.
what we're doing and trying to get to, and it's a work in progress. It's like that, to me, we've got to separate the two issues.
Mm.
Like I'll go, let's just say you work for me and you rang up and said, I've got anxiety. You came to me and said, I've got some anxiety.
Mm.
I go, okay, right, well, let's take some time here. Do you want to talk to our counsellor? Want to talk to somebody else? You want to take some time? What do you need?
Mm.
And I'd be very empathetic to whatever time you need, we'd get to that situation. That's the first and foremost. It's like if you're sick, we
Mm.
can't discriminate against you. So physical sickness, mental sickness, no difference. Just harder, it's harder to tell a difference.
Yeah.
So are they taking the piss?
Mm.
Pardon my
Yeah.
French.
Mm.
And you go, right, well, at some point in time, that's going to get dealt with and fixed up. We are going to talk about your work performance
Yes.
because it's going to affect that. Now, one thing that these Gen Z guys, or I don't even like saying Gen Z because my book is Generation Z, but like, and not every single one of them, but most likely and typically, they're very happy to say I've got anxiety, I can't come to work. They also typically don't really care too much about the heavier load that the people at work are carrying, or the fact I'm going to go and call in someone else from their time off with their family and friends to cover them. I
Yes.
don't really care for that too much. I'm worried about myself. So
Mm.
do I judge that? A little bit, but that's it. I think we just got to get to a point where we can try and deal with it in a medical fashion,
Yes.
then go, well, once that's done with, we need to talk about the work performance because at some point in time it's going to get spoken about. We can't hide that.
Mm.
And it might be, the fact that you shouldn't be working hospitality. If people are pinging you off or you can't face people, well, it's probably not where you want to be working. You should be
Yes.
working somewhere else. So
Mm.
um, yeah, we're at really, really new ground there, but that's where I think we need to be heading.
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
And I like that. I think, you acknowledge it first. Yes, you accept that. And then, but it's also has that guideline. And when you do come in, let's catch up, have that conversation, talk
Mm.
about the workplace and your role in that. So at least they know they're still going to be held accountable. It
Yeah, that's
can't,
right.
yeah. And so you're understanding, but there is going to be a conversation which may well be able to provide them more help and more
Mm.
help, or it's well, yeah, are they in the right role? Are they the right person for the organization, but are they in that wrong role? Or
Yep.
this is, but as you said, with hospitality, and we know, our customers are more intolerant than they've ever been, and they're really all about me. And always have a laugh. I do disc behavioral profiling when I do my middle management program. And I always look at time management. And there's nobody in this industry over the last 3 decades that's got any good time management. And I think to myself, it's not just that, because they come into work and they go, right, well, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, even the CEO. And now as you said, you've got that chap knocking your door, how I want to have a conversation. HR thinks they've got everything done. And so now they're sitting there with a box of, tissues and people don't turn up for work and all things happen. And then you've got patrons coming through the door with
Mm.
their conversation. So time management just gets thrown out the window, but that's why we're a club,
Yep.
because it's that connection.
It is indeed. Yeah, we get distractions galore, and like time management's a funny one. I sort of, it's only last week I said to someone else, it's really about discipline and
Yeah.
organisation.
Mm.
Oh, what do you mean? I said, well, everyone's got the same time. You're not managing yours very well at all.
Yes.
Like we're all distracted. It's like, you just get disciplined with what your must-dos are, and it's going to change by the hour.
Yes, yes, yeah. And it's very easy just to say, oh well, I'm just too busy. And I was reading something the other day. If you're saying it's too busy, then it's not important to you. Well, if it's
Hmm.
important to you, you'll make the time. And we do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we
Prioritize. Yeah.
yeah, we do. So you've been building this really positive, safe environment for your community as well as for your team, which is absolutely key because they're representing, yourself, the leadership team, the board, but, more importantly, each other across the hospitality industry. Because I said you've got over 90 team members, is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, that's a large organization. What advice do you have for other club and hospitality leaders looking to shift or rebuild the workplace culture? Because that word of that organizational culture, workplace culture, is important, but I always sort of stop also, Steve, in thinking we don't want everybody to be exactly the same either. We need diversity of thought, otherwise we're
Yeah.
just really homogenous.
Yeah.
So, what advice or thoughts or tips or strategies that you perhaps would share?
Yeah, well, you mentioned disc before. I've done it before, and with our team, and I think it's super important to understand yourself and your teammates, and because we're different, is that's the gift, and you get a lot more done with a diverse team, as you said. But I think there's a lot to it in regard to being really strong with values,
Yes.
being really strong. And look, we guide. I use values every day. They guide us every day, and I let people go on values sometimes, and sometimes the best thing for a culture is to remove someone who doesn't want to live by those values, and
Yes.
it's clear. And
Mm.
there's no smoke and mirrors with that one. You're not lining with our values. You're going to have to go.
Mm.
So I think you've got to be strong there, but understanding yourself. And I've used this word a bit today is reflect on where you are on your journey in management and leadership. Every day is a new day,
Mm.
and just be kind to yourself. Like we all make mistakes and stuff
Yes.
up sometimes. And I did the other day. On Monday. I had a really close team member of mine, a senior manager, and she was going through a rough time. And I was having a rough day myself, and I snapped at her. I was like, "Shit." I realized that fairly quickly, and I went back and made amends, and we're all good now. But like I think it's just being authentic as well, Michelle. And understanding, being able to adapt is massive,
Yes.
and just trying to wade through that whole. I've used that word a few, but today is caring. You've
Mm.
got to care about everything, including yourself. So.
Yeah, you do. And you said before, we're human. We're not a robot. And that's
Mm.
right. We're going to snap. We're going to be we're going to be focused. My daughter gets married in 6 weeks' time. So we've had this plan for 3 years, Steve, and everything's been organized because we're highly organized people. Everything's done, invoices paid, we're all set. But it's the pointy end now. And all of a sudden, the photographer, the caterers, the wedding venue, the celebrant, they all send these massive, pages, like 20 pages, it feels like, of documentation 6 weeks out. Can you fill this out by the end of the week? So, she's a psychologist, and everything, everything's starting to mount up. They're building a home, etc. And then I'm sitting here with all the pressures of work and racing around, and, we love what we do. But this morning, we went to bed because we were going through the list of tables yesterday. The tables. Have you ever done a wedding, Steve, where you've got to place people? Oh, it's one of the worst things. But anyway, I go to bed and I think to myself, oh my goodness, how are they going to find themselves? So then I wake up this morning and I say to Kaylin, so I've been worried all night about that. And she goes, Mum, we talked about this last night. And a bit like what you were saying, I sort of snapped in going, what do you mean? I can't remember. Well, why wouldn't you remember? And I'm thinking, because we've got so much going on in our heads. And
Mm.
then we both looked at each other. I took a sip of my cup of tea. She took a big glass sip of her Milo. We both had a laugh and thought, right, let's just start again because we're both talking about the same thing, but we're just not. And you do, but it's just taking that moment like you did with your team member and just said,
Yeah.
let's just stop. Let's just like reel it back in because we've got
Yeah.
so much, because nobody's going through life with just one thing on their mind. There is so, and we don't know what is happening with others, do we?
And that's the thing. Like, I found a situation last year in like with two of our managers. And it was like, and there was one which was a Gen Z, and another one which was, I'm not sure the Gen was probably a mature lady about 40. And on both occasions, both of these guys had cause to feel overwhelmed at that particular time in work. Now, on both occasions, there was a really clear out. There was two separate managers dealing with these two separate occasions.
Mm,
It was really clear out to going, go and take 10 minutes. I'm
mm,
going to swap you out. And if you want to come back in, that's cool. But if you wanted to swap over, that's cool too.
mm.
And no one's going to know any different. On
Yes.
both occasions, the managers went, toughen up, just get through it.
Mm,
Both occasions end up in both of the mature lady and the young girl, both hysterically crying and hyperventilating because they just felt overwhelmed. Now,
mm.
why would you do that?
Yeah. Mm,
It's just a lack of empathy
yeah.
and care.
Yeah. And but then, they think to themselves, my task, and I'm seeing it perhaps from a different, are they thinking to themselves, well, I've been told by the boss that I've got to achieve this KPI, that we've got to get these 100 people through to the bistro or through that front door. So they're feeling this pressure, whether it's true or whether it's a perceived pressure. So
Mm,
they're thinking, well, you've just got to toughen up because I'm depending on you, but it's how it's
mm,
said to
mm,
people. It's
mm.
how it makes them feel. And we know as leaders, sometimes we have to smile and think to ourselves, seriously? Um,
Yeah.
but it's how do we adapt? And that's you were
Yeah.
using that word before. How do we adapt to our word and our body language that we're not just telling them what to do, but
Mm.
we're guiding them gently along to
Mm.
understand that's what they're
Yep.
there. But we're human. We
Yep.
do
We
this.
are we're human. Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. I just want to, before we finish off, just a couple of quick things. You talked about this essentially coolie. Can you just expand that a little bit more for the listeners who are trying to work out what's essentially coolie mean, apart from coolie being short for Coolangatta? And how do you keep your team connected and your purpose clear, during those times? Because it was hectic. And, I know it is 5 years ago, but
Yeah.
why did I know you said you're a club and that we're really important, that you are a big employer but a big community space, but why did you feel that you needed to do that, and how were the team involved as well?
I fell in by accident.
You seem to do a lot of that, Steve.
I do. I do. I'm a bit of a winger. That's not whinger. So I have this really famous, I had a really, really famous treasurer of our club. He was a big businessman in town. And before I start, I'll let you something funny. When I got employed, he said to me, he was a treasurer. And at the interview, he said, I'm not an accountant, but I know how to count. And when you think about that, it's a really great thing to say. It's like, yeah, I thought, what's he mean by that? But anyway, this is a guy. So I had this bit of a breakdown and was like, open up, shut down, open up, shut down.
Mm.
But to be honest with you, when we were closed for that long period of time, and this is a bit, it's probably a bit controversial, but I actually liked it.
Yeah. I wish now I'd watched Netflix instead of kept working.
Well, I mean,
Maybe.
it's the same. I spoke with this quite a famous rugby league player, was an international, and he said sometimes when you're injured,
Mm.
it was actually okay, not all the time, but he goes, there's no pressure to perform and the fear of failure and that sort of stuff. So it was a bit like that. There was no one complaining about rosters, there's no one complaining about a cold schnitzel. I was coming to work getting paid the same money. Job keeper was in. I'm going, you know what? Like it was boring, but like we were generating things to keep connection going. Anyway, that was that. But so it was like, so the big close down was all right, sort of. Then it was like open up, shut down, open up, shut down.
Mm.
There was masks and there was mandates. It was like, it was so hard. And being right on the border, we don't actually have any locals. So I
Mm.
said before, 90 staff, we had a third of our staff based in New South Wales.
Mm.
Now, the essentially part of this was people were being classed as essential workers or not, right? So that's how that came in. But so for the first week, we had a third of our staff locked out, couldn't come to work. Both governments started to realise fairly quickly there was going to be a massive class action against them if they don't
Mm.
allow people to earn money for their families. So they developed a way to allow them to come to work, but they couldn't socialise or even get a cup of coffee or do any shopping. They had to go straight home again, which was one of the crazy things. Anyway, so that sort of happened, but I had a bit of a breakdown there. I'll jump to the what did we do? So the same treasurer guy, he said to me, "What are you going to do?" And I started crying, which I was 58 years of age, which is not the done thing, apparently. And he stood there and he goes, "Listen, mate, we're paying you a lot of money." And I'm just looked at him like white faced, and I'm thinking,
Mm.
here's a virtual slapping head coming. I
Mm.
was like just crying and sobbing. He goes, "We pay you a lot of money. Get this one." He goes, "You know why?" I went, "I don't know." He said, "Because you're bloody good at your job, mate."
Oh.
We trust you completely with whatever you decide you're going to do. We're behind you 100%. Even if you get it wrong, we wouldn't know what to do different. So we trust you.
Yeah.
Just go and do it.
Yes.
And I just went like that.
Yeah.
And so it really gave me a huge amount of, but then he said, look, let's go and sit down. And we had a cup of coffee. And he said, right, so just calm down. He said, what we need to do is just, first thing is be calm.
Mm.
He said, we need to keep communication up. So you keep getting all the information in and we'll disseminate it to all of our stakeholders.
Mm.
He was really good with in regard to like making sure our local suppliers are all paid for, multinationals and stuff, they can go on terms.
Mm.
He said to me, make sure you keep some money aside for our people in case they need us to look after them.
Yes.
And he said, we're going to operate in 2-week blocks.
Mm.
That's it. So
Mm.
stay calm, care,
Yeah.
and be really calculated. So there's a lot of C's in there.
Mm.
And so we did that. So rolling on to Essentially Coolie, it was we'll close Mondays and Tuesdays, which is quite unbelievable, but that's what
Mm.
happened. And I had our local politician ring me up and say, I'm having a meeting with the local Coolangatta businesses downstairs in our coffee shop. I said, oh, yeah, whatever. So then she rang me. I was in at work and she rang me and goes, I've got 120 people, which was exceeding the outdoor number.
Gosh.
Can we come inside? And I said, yeah, righto. So I opened up the doors and literally 120 people came in. Every single TV camera
Wow.
came in as well. And she grabbed the microphone and she was whipping it. So she was in opposition at that stage. She was whipping them all into a frenzy. The meeting went for about an hour. And everyone's like, oh, it's like a lynch mob. And it was like, I'm standing going, I actually said to her, what's this going to achieve? And she said,
Mm.
this will be on the 6 o'clock news. I said, so what? That's
Mm.
not going to do anything. It's
Mm.
good for you, not for us. It was
Mm.
like, "Arr." And I said, all we can do, we're not going to get the borders lifted. When we're stuck in this little pocket down here, it was with all of the no locals.
Mm.
All we can do is perhaps get the government motivated enough to give us some relief payments or get some marketing help to us to get the Brisbane people down here,
Mm.
holiday at least, because it's a holiday town.
Yes.
And so that's really where that was born. So a lady came and approached me and said, after the meeting finished, I want to see you. I said, okay. And she said, I want to make a TV ad. I said, what? She said, let's make a TV ad. So we sat down and we paid for it, the surf club. We rang up a guy and who I still know today. He videoed our mental health walk actually, and he charged us the fee, and we kicked into action with making the ad. So it was called Essentially Coolie on the essential thing.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful little ad, and we're pretty naive. Our goal was to try and raise $80,000 to get it on TV in Brisbane. Well, little did I
Mm.
know, it was probably about 2 days worth of advertising.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was what the plan was. And so what happened then was the media played a massive part in it. It was a really, really strong emotional hard luck story with, as you said before,
Mm.
families separated and heaps of horrible stories like that. So the media loved it. And they were jumping. We ended up on the Today Show about 2 weeks later.
Gosh.
And that really kicked things off, and the media were just all over like a rash. So eventually, the Labor government got involved and decided to come in and kick some cash in, which I never counted at all, but they said it was 14 million bucks. But
Wow.
we got about 160 grand in our club alone out of it, which was enough to get us through that tough time and emotionally too. But it really was. It bound our community together. It was
Yes.
really like it was us versus the world at that stage. It was really, really amazing. I've never felt so good, but it was also a tough time for me. As soon as it finished, I had this massive empty feeling in my gut where, well, I actually thought I was a media tart, and that's when I had a little breakdown. I went and got a mental health care plan with my GP, and the first thing the counsellor said to me was, "You're not a media tart. You just like doing good things. There's nothing apparent in front of you. So find a charity." That's where I found Orange Sky Laundry. So.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And if I can just pick parts out of it, Steve, because I really appreciate you being so raw and honest about it, is that very first point, having that treasure, give you that, that virtual slap, but really gave you some great advice. And we saw that so often, during that time, and we still see it. And it wasn't just during COVID, it's a lot. We always, as leaders, look down to our team, how can we help them? But very rarely do they ever look up
Mm,
and say, how are you going, boss? How are you feeling?
yeah.
And that, I think just particularly during that time, it was very confronting because, as leaders, we had teams that we were looking after that were looking at us thinking, well, how, what do we do? How are we going to make rent? And particularly those first few weeks. So having him there, but then to just turn around and say, we believe in you. And as you
Yeah.
said,
Oh,
you
that
just needed somebody to say,
I'll never forget that.
yeah,
Like, honestly, I stood in front of the staff, and I think we had 82 staff at that stage, and I can still tell you exactly where I stood. I can still picture the faces and where they stood and what they were doing. And this is just honest. I've done eulogies for all of my family, like my mum and my dad and my brother. It was a very similar feeling standing in front of those staff for some reason, I don't know, where I just felt this whole sense of dread. And
mm,
when your team come to you and go, "What do I do?"
yeah,
and you can't say, "I don't know," but that's all I could say.
yes, yeah,
And it's horrible as a leader, and if you don't have the answers, well, you're a failure. That's
yes,
really,
yeah,
and that just weighed super heavy on me. But lucky JobKeeper came through in a couple of weeks later. But one of the things in there was it didn't look after internationals, and we had a really large international contingent in
yes.
the club.
Mm.
So once again, we developed ways to have those guys feel like they were a part of it and help feed them and all sorts of stuff through there. So it was pretty good.
Yeah. And then did you, by connecting those from international, because you're right, for particularly in your area, there's a lot of them. So they were just left like, well, what do I do? Do you feel that even grew that connection with them and your club even more?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was, those guys were like they grouped together in their own little community. There
Mm.
was one particular nationality, they're Brazilians, and and just even like I spoke before about understanding people. Like these guys are just so passionate. It's not funny.
Yes.
Super grateful when you do good things for them. They're super
Mm.
loyal to you, and but they just love some direct communication, understanding. But like it was really this whole. It was like on. I said before about people's feelings were sort of exacerbated or,
Mm.
highlighted some way after COVID. It was sort of like that, where they just everything was all hyped up
Yes.
and they like blokes crying that you've done something to look after them. Like we went on and sponsored some, and they just they're so grateful and they
Yes.
just feel good. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's as humans, we like to do things for other people.
yeah, yeah,
And it's that one of those four things that we need. We need to be loved and we need to love others. And
yeah.
that's a part of it. You mentioned just briefly then about this Orange Sky Laundry. So what's this other charity that you're involved with? Is that with the club or is that just with you
No,
personally?
that's a separate thing.
Right.
As I said, when I have my counselling, the counsellor suggested I go and find something to do on a more regular basis. So
Right.
I just did what most people do, hopped on Google and said, "What can I volunteer for?" I was already doing volunteer surf lifesaving. I was patrolling with Coolangatta at that stage, which I don't do anymore. But so I just stumbled on Orange Sky Laundry. Thought, yeah, that sounds like a cool thing to do. So we wash clothes for the homeless.
Mm.
Um, so there's a van with two washers and two dryers. There's a shower at the back. We co-host. I actually had a shift last night, so at Burley,
Yeah.
and it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a heck of a lot. So and we co-host with Roses on the Street who provide food. So yeah, it's really amazing. I'm having a little bit of an extended break from Orange Sky. It was last night was my last shift for a while, and as the universe does sometimes, it provided me with a beautiful moment where. So the homeless guys are called friends. We call them friends. So all of my favourite friends and significant friends showed up without knowing it was my last shift,
Right.
and were there, and they've taught me some incredible lessons.
Mm.
Even aside from that, it's like a lot of time when I would leave work here after having a really hard day, go home, might have some words with the missus, and you know, and you're going, oh, and you got to go to damn volunteering. But as soon as I get there,
Mm.
it's just instant good vibes, right? There's
Yes.
the other volunteers alone just lift your spirits. And
Mm.
there's no place for thinking of yourself. It's like,
Yes.
oh, yeah, walk to the car, it's raining, I'm getting my hair wet.
Mm.
Someone's living in it.
Yeah. Every
So,
single moment. Mm.
and look, another thing I learnt really early doors, and last night was an example, was a couple of the guys were got a bit cranky with each other. And, a lot of them have substance issues and stuff. And
Mm.
it was going to be, it looked like there was going to be a bit of a physical confrontation with a couple of them. Me 2 years ago I would have been the club manager standing in the middle of them going, calm down, you need to, treat each other with respect. It's like it's not my job to fix anybody.
Okay.
And they've got beef. There's normally good reason for beef. It's
Yes.
just we've got to make sure everyone's safe. And
Mm.
so like I sat there last night, thought, here's a lesson being taught to me again. So
Yes, yes.
but I walked away last night with this immense feeling of gratitude, and I said that I get much more out of it than I put in every single time. So
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
really grateful that I'm able to do things like that. So
Yeah. And once again, I just thank you so much for sharing your own personal story. But we know that our teams look up to us, and the values and the your behaviors and your actions model that of what your team see all the time. And we know that they look at us, they watch us, and then they model that behavior and those values and understanding what that vision is. So, just from your small steps that have increased and not just raising money for the community, but just raising awareness and that
mm,
connection, not only for others, but for yourself has just been remarkable. And I'm sure, you start off saying to you, oh, well, I'm 60 now, I've got a decade. I just can't wait to see what else you're going to do, Steve, because I hardly think you're going to sit on the sidelines. But I know many of my listeners, and I'll be putting, links to your website for
yep,
both Clubs for a Cause as well as your club, Coolangatta
yep.
Surf Club, so people can see where you are. How can they find out, or what could they do to donate money or do something or start up something like Clubs for a Cause? How can they find out more information for that?
I mean, they could probably just simply just go to clubsforacause.com.au. It's still just up. It's just a fundraising website at the moment. It's one of our
Mm,
projects when we get some time is build a proper website, but it's got all the information about the walk on there. There's a story of how it all started.
mm,
It's a fundraising platform there, but that's sort of finished at the moment. So you said before about the money. Money, we just use the money to allow us to do the awareness. What's our main goal
yes.
is the awareness and what that happens. So we are looking to do a hardworking committee. So we're looking to have some touch points about every second month on a 12-month rotational basis. So
Mm,
we're looking to annualize our sponsorship and making sure those guys are getting a massive return on investment, which they are.
mm,
Um, and we've got a session coming up. We're moving around southeast Queensland at the moment, so we've got a session coming up on Wednesday, October 15th, which will be up on the website soon. That's called Healthy Heads. So I mentioned Matt Runnels before. He's an amazing guy. He's an
mm,
international keynote speaker. He does about 6 months of the year in the US. You listen to him and you'll never be the same again. So
mm,
he'll do a keynote address. Then we'll have a panel discussion about what we can do in your own workplace.
mhm,
And then we'll be taking registrations for the workshop I discussed before, which
mm.
is really fun based. It's actually working groups with Lego, to be honest with you.
Oh,
So
I've been using Lego for 3 decades. I love
wow, yeah,
Lego.
yeah. So I'm really looking forward to the first one of that. So that's a month later at Brothers at Ipswich in November sometime, but they'll all be up soon. And it's either going to be free or heavily subsidised. And then we've got two of those happening, and we're planning on a bowls day up in Club Pine Rivers as well. And then we'll roll through another walk again. So it's all go go go. But the real goal is to try and get the awareness levels up and trying to roll into workplace with trying to spread the word about how everybody can do some different things in their own workplace.
Mm.
Treat each other with some respect and understand that we all struggle from time to time.
Yes,
And
yes.
then my part time manage the club.
Yeah, just on the side note, that's what else I do. But look, as I said, I'll put all the links in the show notes. But of course, that's open for people outside the club industry as
Yeah,
well.
100%. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so everybody's invited, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of my listeners, and many of them are CEOs, will contact you, Steve, or harass you at the next conference that we're all at, and say, "Look, how do I go about this?" And because they also want to get involved, because that's what registered clubs are there for. No matter where we are in Australia, it's about our community and connecting people with others.
Yeah, it is indeed, Michelle, and thank you very much for having me on today. And I just wanted to say for anybody in the particular club industry, I'm more than happy to have a chat with anybody about anything. But like what I have learnt through this is how to connect some people up and connect
Mm,
sponsors up and get your purpose into the community run events. There's a lot of work in it, but there's an art form to it, and I've got a
mm.
pretty good framework to do that. So if anybody anywhere needs to pick my brain, I can. It's not franchise around that, but I'm happy to share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's wonderful. Because you are right. It is that framework. And why do we have to constantly let people reinvent the wheel instead of being that conduit and saying, look, Steve's done it. Have a chat to Steve, and then,
yeah,
and it'll make the work a lot lighter, but also bring together whatever you're wanting to do a lot faster instead of getting caught up with red tape or falling over just before it
100%.
starts. So
Yeah.
thank you so much once again for joining us, Steve. And I look forward to popping up to good old Coolangatta and enjoying some lovely sunshine.
Awesome, Michelle. Thank you very much, and you have a great day.
All right, take care.
Thank you.